One. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Delusions of Grandeur. I'm your host, David Streggy, and here in the room with me, I have one of my best friends here, Boris, who
Hi.
um, he's been helping me take a separate video journey since he lives all the way in Croatia, and he's so far. But he enjoys independent films and films of all kinds, and he's been so patient with me in going along some of these independent ventures. And thank you so much for joining me today. So.
Oh, you're welcome. I enjoy our conversations as well. So,
So today I figured I'd go on about I had you watch an independent film called The Monster from Phantom Lake, and it was directed by Christopher R. Mihm. And he's actually from one state over. He's from Minnesota. Um, and he is, so in a sense, he's kind of local. Um, but he's made a ton of films, and I know I'm still waiting for two of his films that he's going to come out with. But I figured we'd go on about his first film, and I originally um, came across this film first in in one of my local shops called Half Price Books, and it just so
oh
happens
wow.
that it is signed Doc for some reason. So, so I think it was
Cool.
signed by uh, Dr. Jackson, uh, who
Could
is
be.
who is in this film. So I think someone randomly dropped the film off so that people could find it or whatnot. And guess what? I found the second film there too, from Christopher R. Mihm, and that's when I went and actually started to look him up, the director, and where I could find his films. And I bought most of the rest of his films on there, on his site, sainteuphoria.com, I think. And I've kind of been contributing to his films ever since, because it's very cheap to get involved in his films. To be honest, it's like
Oh,
25 bucks to
very
get.
nice.
It's like 25 bucks to get a copy of the film and your name in the special thanks section or whatnot. Um,
Wow.
as like one of the you can consider yourself like a contributor or whatnot. So, but his franchise is fascinating the way that he does it. So, but in any case, let's. I'm gonna go just say a little small summary of what this film is about. Um, even though
Okay.
he even though he is a filmmaker from Minnesota, uh, IMDb says a mutated monster terrorizes campers in the woods of 1950s Wisconsin.
Oh.
But that's
Well,
because
I'm not sure.
that's because
I'm
you're
not sure if the state was mentioned in the movie, or was it?
McGuanago was mentioned, and
Ah,
McGuanago is in Wisconsin, and that's where Christopher R. Mim used to live for a time. So,
that makes sense.
but in any case, so we have three different stories emerging from this particular feature. And but in the very beginning, we see two men who end up dropping some kind of canister off at what is considered Phantom Lake around these parts, and they have no choice but to dump this material into the lake to get rid of it. And what does it
Yeah.
say? What does it say on the this canister that they're dumping?
Oh, it says atomic waste.
So, um, before we get too much further, just so you know, folks, spoiler alert: we may spoil the shit out of this movie. So,
Oh
um,
yeah, that's true.
but I want to get your first impressions of this film. What did you think about this film entirely? Did you enjoy it?
Oh yes, I enjoyed it. I have seen it twice so far, as we were supposed to have this discussion last week, but things got in the way. So today I watched it for the second time, and I enjoyed it pretty much. I like the way they made it look like an old movie. Like when I watched it for the first time, I wasn't actually sure how old the movie is until I saw the year in the ending credits. I think it's pretty good at being what it tried to be. I mean, the whole thing about, I think it's set in the 50s or something, shortly after World War II, right?
Yeah, thereabouts. That's where it's kind of set, and that's why we get some of the dialogue that we get because they have a different way of speaking the characters in here, don't they?
Uh, yeah, and yeah, there are some details indicating the time when the story takes place, like when Professor Jackson and his student mention Elvis Presley, like he's still alive. And,
Right?
yeah,
And the kids are talking about rock and roll like it's a bad thing.
yeah.
But yeah, so after this toxic waste is spilled is when the film starts to begin, and we're introduced to two characters, Professor Jackson and his assistant, um, Stephanie Yates.
Yeah.
And they are going to study science and the amphibian way of life uh, um, here at Phantom Lake. Also, we have a group of 5 kids, teenagers, who are evidently done with school or finished up with school, and they are taking a summer vacation here in the woods.
Yeah.
And we have a loner that evidently goes by the name of Michael Kaiser, who
Yeah.
who is kind of a homeless man that lives there in the woods. So
Yeah,
these are three.
and
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say I noticed he shares the name with the actor who plays him. Uh,
Yeah, he is the name of the actor who plays the monster.
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting detail to notice.
But he is also, you know, the man in the woods. So, but in any case, so what do you think of the professor and his assistant?
Well, they were pretty interesting characters. I liked the way their romance developed throughout the story, although it's supposed to be uh, a short story. Like the whole thing happened during one weekend, and they ended up. Getting together in the end, which was pretty nice. I liked how things developed with their characters throughout the movie, and yeah, the professor was definitely interesting with his music.
Yeah, he had an interesting way of speaking too. I like the fact that he always had that pipe around. To
Yeah,
It was kind of like a Sherlock Holmes kind of a thing, you know, that he'd stick it in his mouth or something of that nature. And he always had something to say about science. So let's do it in the
well,
name of science.
yeah. Yeah, he seems pretty dedicated to his work.
Well, and Stephanie Yates seems dedicated to Professor Jackson.
Yeah, lucky him, huh?
Yeah. But um, yeah, he kind of sets up the romance kind of between them two. But I kind of it was kind of an awkward romance too, because of how long it took for the professor to give in to his uh, craving to kiss her or hug her or whatnot. But anyways, moving on to the kids. So we have George and Jonathan, played by Brad Tracy and Justin Overlander, and Penny
Yeah,
and Amy, and Elizabeth, um, played by Deanne McDonald, Lindsay Holmes, and Rachel Grubb. So these kids are kind of 1950s kids, clean cut. Um, we're introduced to them while they're dancing to some rock and roll music. And one person is sitting out. Who is that?
I think it was Elizabeth, right?
Right. And what do you think
Um,
about her character?
well, I liked her character quite a bit, actually. I have sometimes been in similar situations as she was there among those people, and she didn't seem to have much in common with them, didn't know what to talk about, and so on. And I can, like I said, I can imagine such a situation. And yeah, and the way her character impacted the story later on was pretty well imagined.
Well, when what's his name, Jonathan, was telling her that she was like she looked like Michael Kaiser's wife. He wasn't exactly
Yeah,
lying.
yeah, and that fact played a huge part later on.
So the kids end up trying to get Elizabeth to chill out and relax a little bit, trying to dance, but she seems kind of awkward and out of place and whatnot. So what they do is they settle down for a campfire and some ghost stories, and um, there just so happens to be a legend of a man called Lobo, who evidently came back from the war, from killing some Germans, and he was so traumatized by it that he ended up killing his family and ended up locating to the woods nearby. And so this terrorizes Elizabeth so much that she doesn't sleep during the night.
Well, yeah. Uh,
What do you think
Well,
about the story of Michael Kaiser?
well, it's actually a tragic story, and it's rather quite realistic. It wasn't quite a ghost story. As far as we got to know, he seemed to have a severe case of PTSD after the war, and he thought that his wife was replaced by a German spy who looked like her, and he ended up killing her. And then eventually he found out that he killed his real wife, and he didn't end up in jail because he was declared mentally unstable, if I remember correctly.
Well,
And
and
then he
there are a lot of people who go through this kind of a disease. It's normally called like post-traumatic stress syndrome or something like that. And
post-traumatic stress disorder, you mean?
yep.
Uh, yeah,
So uh, I mean, it's it is a tragic story. I mean, you hear about things like this, and you feel sorry for the way that things turned out, and it was kind of like an accident that he did not mean, and so he became a hermit, which means a person who ends up um, normally alone and
yeah,
normally cannot be around people.
yeah. He went to live in the woods all alone, and even then he was, from what I remember, frequently talking to himself and mentioning the Germans and so on.
Meanwhile, the professor and the his young assistant end up running into some of the local law enforcement who are canoeing along. What did you think about the characters of Sven and Gustav?
What happened with them in the end was kind of surprising. I didn't see it coming. You probably know what I mean, but we will get to that. But otherwise, we didn't actually get to see much of them. They didn't have much screen time, but they seemed like okay guys. But practically, as soon as we got to know them, they were pulled out by the monster, and we didn't see them again until the very end.
Hey, Sven, did you fall in again? Oh, wait, Sven, that's not funny. Wait, you're
Oh
not Sven.
yeah, yeah,
Ah.
yeah, you're not Sven.
But in any case, so not too long after that, we we see that the wildlife that they are looking at, the professor and Miss Yates, They are looking at the amphibious life that is from the lake, and it appears that the amphibian that they specimen that they have acquired
Uh,
has like 8 legs.
yeah, like mutated.
Correct. So not only that, but there are signs that evidently the kids, they are traveling through the woods for quite some time. They get lost, and they end up meeting up with the professor and his assistant, and they go off and end up finding that Kaiser. Well, actually, before all that happens, what happens to Michael Kaiser?
He sees those two men who were dropping the atomic waste in the lake, and they go there multiple times. And this one time he sees them, and the men leave, but one of them loses his hat in the lake, and Michael Kaiser tries to get it out of the lake, but then he falls into the water, and we don't see him again, or at least not in that form.
Nope.
Uh,
So ultimately, um, the kids end up going with the professor, and they find out that Michael Kaiser's camp ground uh, has been either ransacked, or it seems like a lot of his area is messed up, and they find his dog tags there, and they bring them back. It, and it seems like we get an appearance of a monster from the lake somewhere
yeah.
in this whole thing, because eventually it gets down to just George.
Yeah.
What happens to the other characters, or what do you think happens?
Well, mm, from what we saw, four of the five teenagers got killed by the monster, but we actually didn't get to see how exactly. Like, we just hear them scream, and then the scene moves to another character who hears the scream, and we don't really get to see what exactly happened to the other characters. We only hear that they are dead. Although when George returns, he says he saw bones of Jonathan and Davy, so it's
And Professor
implied that.
Jackson, he doesn't believe in this creature because he believes in science. Uh, and so he's when George comes and tells him that he's seen this creature, he's like, you have to have been seeing things, you know. Um, he's disbelievable, at least until he sees it himself, you know. And
Yeah, well, that's a strange thing because they all saw the same thing, but he rather chooses to believe that they all hallucinated the same thing than
well,
to
yeah,
believe that the monster is real.
even though there is evidence of the slime on the tree, and there is that pinky evidently that George had. Um, he's still unbelievable of the at least until he sees it himself, and it's then that he's like, oh, we got to kill it. Oh, I've got a plan.
Uh,
Bring
yeah.
Elizabeth. Bring Elizabeth. I've got an idea. So the idea is to lure him away from the water and apparently have her scream.
Well, I'm not sure if screaming was a part of the plan, but it was a natural reaction for sure.
Maybe I mean I was trying to figure out how they were actually killing him.
uh, uh,
did you
well, yeah.
did you know
Did
what
I?
they were doing to kill him?
What they did to kill the monster?
Yeah,
Well, they kept him away from the water long enough for him to dry because he was due to this atomic waste he became a hybrid of a human and algae. So he had to go to that water every now and then, but they kept him out of the water, so he dried to death.
okay, because I thought it was the screaming that Elizabeth was doing that was killing him. For a moment there, because she did know how to scream, and
Oh, well, yeah,
to
her scream
me,
was good.
it's very possible because she looked like Kaiser's wife that because she was getting afraid of him, maybe that fear of him was killing him off too.
Whew, well, maybe that's an interesting idea. Like maybe it's possible that before he killed his wife, that maybe she screamed too, and maybe when he heard Elizabeth scream, maybe it
Maybe
affected him as well, and then added to what happened.
it's also possible that he thought that she looked like his wife, and if his wife is fearing him, maybe that's a bad thing, and maybe he should just die. Why should he be? Why should he still be alive if his wife fears him? Since she might have been like his reason to live.
Oh, well, that's sad if it really was like that.
It is sad if it was like that, but it is a possibility.
Well, yeah, could be.
But I think it was more the other way, where he couldn't like he couldn't be away from the water too long. Now that you mention it,
Well, at least that was what the professor said, from what I understood.
and humankind was saved, and the professor and Stephanie finally got together.
Yeah, that was nice.
Please call me Daniel.
Yeah, finally.
Ah, but okay, so one of the problems that I found with this film is there was a time where they were marching through the woods, and they continued to march through the woods, and then they continued to march through the woods, and then they continued to march through the woods.
Oh,
Do you remember that part where it sounded like elevator music, and it just seemed like they were walking through the woods for quite a long time,
yeah, was that maybe the scene
and
when they
that wasn't just once, that was twice.
Oh, well, yeah, I did feel a little bit like it took quite a while for things to get serious in the story. Uh,
And I guess the song that Professor sang,
oh, yeah, it was good.
it was very simple. It was like it was made up on the spot.
Well, yeah, but I personally liked it.
I liked it a little bit too. It was catchy, and I mean, it wasn't exactly rock and roll, but it went with the character of the scientist, kind of.
Yeah.
um,
Uh,
did you want to mention anything else before we moved on to the practical effects?
oh, well, I wanted to say, you said that your issue with the movie was that there was this part when they were walking through the woods for a longer time.
Yeah.
Well, I think my issue is the fact that the solution of the mystery was quite predictable. Like when you see those men drop the atomic waste in the lake, and then they talk about Michael Kaiser, and he falls into the lake, and then the monster appears. Your first thought would be that Michael Kaiser would be the monster, and then it really is him. There is no surprising twist to
Uh,
the mystery.
tell you,
Maybe that's why.
well, maybe it wasn't Michael Kaiser to begin with because of that afterthought.
Hmm. But he did react to Elizabeth like she was his wife.
Yeah, he did. So I believe that Michael Kaiser was, in fact, the main monster. But
But
the fact
yeah,
that,
maybe he wasn't the only one.
well, yeah, I think that once people went into the lake, they started to become more of these monsters, and the monster was unique too. It was made. It looked like it was made of paper machete. Um,
Uh, yeah, well, I did like the design of the monster. It was kind of funny, but also pretty cool, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, that kind of goes with into the special effects kind of. What did you fully think about the creature? What did you think it looked like?
Well, uh, maybe the eyes were a little unrealistic, but it's very clear that they put a lot of effort into making that costume. It's pretty creatively imagined, and well, aside of the eyes, pretty well done.
I think so too. I like the fact that it was a homemade creature that nobody's ever seen before, and it was supposedly amphibian by nature.
Yeah,
Um,
regarding the fact it was homemade,
Made
it
from
actually was
algae.
pretty well done.
It was an algae creature.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, precisely because it was homemade, it was quite well made actually.
What did you think about um, some of the like the spider frog? And
Had print on the tree was pretty cool, but something they saw at the bottom of the tree. We didn't even see it very well from what I remember. It, like they mentioned something was there, but it wasn't shown on screen very clearly, was it?
Yeah, it wasn't very clear entirely, but I, I I again like the fact that this was in black and white, so it made you have to think about what it might have looked like. You know, to me, I love black and white films. I love the 1950s. It was an interesting time because many people were scared of many things, and half the time when it had something to do with a scientifical experiment gone wrong, uh,
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 yeah, well,
it
I
was
would
either
say
by accident or by design that these things happened. And I particularly like the 1950s science fiction films. I mean, there were films like Tarantula and um, the Giant Claw, the Crawling Eye, Forbidden Planet. Films of that nature, and uh, I mean, Forbidden Planet it was about a creature that came from someone's imagination. So, I mean, these are the monster movies of yesteryear. So to me, having to be able to have films that remind you of those times is fascinating to me because I'm glad that there are people who pay homage to that genre because it was an interesting time period to be in. I mean, most of these films were concocted just to scare the bejesus out of us about the what ifs.
uh,
I mean,
well, yeah, I would actually say this movie did a pretty good job at looking old, like something from the 50s or so.
oh yeah, oh yeah, I absolutely liked this first film that Christopher Mihm did. And next week, I'm hoping to interest you in another filmmaker who kind of did something similar. Um, uh,
Oh,
he his name is Larry Blamar, and he directed a film called "The Lost Skeleton of Cadavera." Um,
ooh.
so hopefully, you'll be interested in checking that out. And then I figured the following week we'll check out The Lord of Tears.
Oh, nice.
So we'll have some interesting, and then when I find my copy of the musical, we'll go back on and talk about the differences uh, in the stage musical of this particular film, because someone took the Christopher Mihn's idea and put it into a musical form. So
Wow.
um, I'm interested in finding where I stuck that, and once I do, we'll go on about it. So in any case, what did you think about some of the music that was involved in this film, besides the professor's music that he created?
Well, I like the music in this movie. Maybe at some point it felt like an unusual choice of music, like when these two policemen are pulled into the lake, but it's supposed to be a suspenseful scene, yet the music is there is some soft music in the background, but I believe they did it that way on purpose to make it look unusual. But yeah, the music was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I thought so too. Uh, I mean, except for the elevator music while they were going through, or it actually felt like a Leave It to Beaver kind of music to me. The you know, as they were
Yeah.
walking through the woods. It's unfortunate because I get the fact that he was trying to show that they were walking through the woods for quite a long time, but we did not need to see that. One thing he could have done is maybe have them walk through the woods and then have another screen say a little while later while
Oh,
walking through the woods or something like that. I could see something like that happening instead of the continuous walking through the woods.
yeah, that reminds me, at the very beginning of the movie, there is a screen saying present day, which kind of implies there is going to be a part happening in the past, but then there is nothing like that. It's all in the present day.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So it's not that he doesn't know how to say or put title cards into a film. He
No,
just didn't.
I didn't read that. I just a little confused. Like I wonder about the meaning of that screen saying present day when the entire movie takes place in the present day.
Oh, it could mean something like it could be happening now. It could be
Mm,
happening this moment.
Whew. Well, yeah.
So to the viewer, it could be happening presently somewhere in Wisconsin.
Ah. Yeah, that's kind of
if you
ironic regarding the fact.
if you get what I mean. I also like the fact that he figured out how to present the title of the movie the way that they used to in the 50s too.
Well, yeah, I noticed he used a lot of details from the 50s, like the devices they use in the movie, these campers when they are listening to music. They really did have some old devices there.
Yeah, they had a radio. And Elizabeth was like, my parents didn't don't like rock and roll, so I don't listen to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell what kind of parents her parents were. sticks
Yeah.
sticks in the mud, but in any case, so did you have anything else that you wanted to add about this film before we finished up the discussion? Oh, did you have a favorite scene that you might like to take from this film?
Well, maybe the final encounter with the monster. It was the most intense scene, but also it had some humor in it, and it was pretty good. And generally, like I said, aside of the mystery of the monster's identity being a little too easy to solve, like it's obvious that it's Michael Kaiser. Aside of that, I would say it's a pretty enjoyable movie. Like I said, I saw it twice so far, and I really liked it.
My favorite scene is a scene between Professor and Stephanie. Um, says something to the fact that well, don't you want to play around? And she's like, I'd love to play around.
Yeah, like she is not too subtle about her feelings for him.
No.
While he he appears to be a little more reserved, but it's obvious that he likes her too.
Mhm. Oh yeah, that's why I say it's kind of awkward because he doesn't he doesn't take the opportunities that he could have while while in the presence of his student. But I think it's more or less because he's got respect for her or something like that. But personally, I'd rather there be some disrespect. But I like that this film kept it clean for the most part. And I think that's what some of the 1950s was about. It
Oh,
was about good um, good messages. Even though you know good clean fun at one point in time. That's to me, I think this film was trying to send a positive message, um, in a sense, to wait for the right moments to have romance or something to that effect, So,
yeah, makes sense.
but in any case, I think that's all the time that we have for today, folks. Um, I personally enjoyed some of the acting. I mean, it was a little over the top, some of it, but this was set in the 1950s, and I don't think he did too bad for his first feature. And
Indeed, if
I
it
just
was his first one, it's even better, actually.
I kind of like that
Like
it was
here,
set here in Wisconsin, since I am from Wisconsin. So,
oh yeah.
that's another thing that I like about this film. So, in any case, definitely check the film out if you have not. Um, I'm I'm pretty sure it's out of print, but I think that you can buy all of them on Blu-ray. And you can find many of these films on eBay. I know that the most popular of his is the Giant Spider, which is one that we can check out down the road. Um,
We could.
but I want to kind of go in order to when they were filmed. So the second one is it came from, let's see. I want to come back to his world of things. It came from another world. It's his second one. So he has 14 films out there right now. Um,
Oh, nice.
and he's got two others to add to the all of that, that I have not gotten yet, which I paid for. So, um, but I started getting in. I started putting money in around 2015. So, I got Danny Johnson Saves the World, Where Skeeto, Nazi Hunter, Demon with the Atomic Brain, Gods in the Apocalypse, and Queen of Snakes. Those are all titles that come from the Mihm universe. But after It Came from Another World was Cave Women on Mars, Terror from Beneath the Earth, Destination Outer Space, Attack of the Moon Zombies, and House of Ghosts in between the giant spider movie. So,
Oh, sounds like some interesting titles.
and of course, there was also something called the Late Night Devil Feature. So, um, uh, uh, I plan on I plan on having us discuss some of these later on down the road. It's just I like to skip around and do different things. So I hope that you've enjoyed my choices so far. And if
Oh,
you ever wanted to suggest something that we could discuss, you're more than welcome to too. If you don't like my choice for the following week,
oh,
I don't want you to be alone in just following what I want to talk about. I want you to enjoy it too. So.
oh, well, thank you, but so far I cannot really complain about your choices. If I come up with any idea of something we could discuss, I will say it for sure. But so far, you haven't disappointed me with your choices at all. I enjoyed this movie too, and I'm looking forward to discussing more movies made by this
Well,
director.
just
So,
don't be afraid to tell me, hey Dave, I want to discuss this movie. It's been on my mind or something like that because to me, I'm just kind of winging it and going from film to film and show. And I know there's a lot of ground to cover. So
oh, well, thank you. When I come up with one that I'd really like to discuss, I will mention it for sure.
alrighty.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's all the time that we have for today, folks. So hopefully you enjoyed our discussion and rambling on this film and some of the films that follow this film. As you can see, there are a lot of films that this man has done. So,
Yeah, well, I really enjoyed this one, so I'm looking forward to watching more and discussing them with you. It's going to be fun.
yeah, I just hope that my bronchitis goes away by then. So,
Oh,
I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, if you hear some of this, but I am
yeah.
still getting over being sick. So, in any case,
I
like,
hope
share, and
you recover
subscribe.
soon.
Like, share, and subscribe. Hopefully, you enjoyed the discussion, and don't go near any lakes anytime soon, everyone.
Yeah, thank you all for watching the discussion and see you another time. And Dave, I hope you recover soon.
So do I, man. So do I.